All right, so first what we're gonna do is we are gonna take this out. I'm gonna keep on my chemical mask. I'm wearing my nitrile gloves already. I've been working on other projects, so I am wearing my safety equipment because I do have epoxy working around me and on for other tumblers. But today we're gonna take this outside. We're gonna do a gentle sand this is a 320 grit. You can use a 220 grit or a 320 grit and just gently sand the surface of this tumbler. And then once that is done, we're gonna wash it with soap, water and soap, dry it off very, very well, put it in front of a fan for about 20 minutes, make sure it's very dry, and then we're gonna coat it with the satin protective enamel that is in white. Or you can, again, you can use any spray paint in white. Gloss finish doesn't work as well because alcohol inks have a hard time settling down on the gloss. So you want satin or matte finish, but white is your best option. So again, we're gonna sand, wash it down, and then spray it with white sand, spray paint. All right, guys, we'll be right back.
All right, guys, so we are gonna do the wood grain on this beautiful cup right now. We are using espresso and I believe this is caramel, ginger, sorry. Espresso and ginger. I usually use a chip brush, which we get from Home Depot for like 50 cents, but I don't have one right now, and with the world the way it is, we are trying not to leave our house as much as possible, so we are just going to make do with this little rough edged paintbrush that I've got in a set at Michael's a long time ago. It was like $5 and it came with 15 or 20 different brushes, and so it's a very inexpensive brush, and the reason I like it is because it's kind of frayed on the ends and it is very similar to a chip brush. We got a piece of paper down because this is going to be kind of messy. We're going to start with our lightest color first. And we're gonna go ahead and put a few little drops on the ends of this paintbrush and start going ahead, and we're gonna go top to bottom, and we're gonna essentially just coat this entire cup all the way around as a wood grain. And I love wood grain. To me is so easy. Some people make it very, very complicated. Just brushing it like a chip brush makes it look like a wood grain. You can see it already looks woody, and you can see that it takes on that look very, very easy. Now if you get into doing the really crazy knots and stuff, yes, that is more intricate, but again, for this one particularly, we don't necessarily need that because we're going to do some more fun details on this cup. What we're basically just trying to do is get a simple base down of a chip brush looking wood grain. You can see I'm using my fingers to squeeze the alcohol ink out and just work this down, going top to bottom. Get a good amount on there. This is why I have the paper down, so if it drips through, we're good to go. So simple and so easy. There's a lot of tutorials that overcomplicate, I believe. I think this is just the easiest way. You can see how gorgeous that is already. Simple, simple. Just brush up and down until it's dry. There we go. Make sure you get down inside that little rim. And even now, we're going to be doing multiple colors on this. We're going to be adding the espresso. So we don't have to even worry about it being completely covered. On the bottom, I just add a couple drops and go out in every direction. and just keep brushing until it's dry. All right, so that was our ginger color. Now we're gonna move into our espresso. We're gonna do this, usually, some people like to spray in between. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. It depends on what look I'm going for. This time I am not gonna worry about that. We are just gonna add a little bit of depth to the cup by adding a little bit darker of a color. I'm gonna be able to add the ink right on top of that, the ginger, because it's a darker color. And we're just gonna start adding just a few little touches of that espresso. And I'm not gonna try to get too aggressive. We're just gonna be, it's a much darker color. Just a touch here and there. You can see I'm not pressing as hard because I don't wanna blend as much. You can go up and down to make a little knot. I'm not worried about there because I know it's going to eventually be covered. Coming around, so you can see it's got a nice like dark swoop right there. Kind of be doing a little bit all the way around the cup. So that is a little bit green. That will dry that will go back to its normal state as it dries. It's common when you mix some of the alcohol ink colors, but it will dry normal. Brush them across some of the bottom parts. Keep it coming in there. So there we go. I think this looks pretty darn good. This is really what I was looking for. Just a very simple wood grain. All right, so what we're gonna do is I'm gonna let this dry for about an hour. I'm gonna clean up around and make sure we put our alcohol inks back, and we'll be back down for the next section.
All right, guys, we've got this tumbler ready to go. We've got clear coat spray paint over the top to seal in. I used a matte finish to seal in the paint. It is now completely dry. I put it in front of a fan. It's been sitting for about an hour. So we're ready to put the epoxy on. We're using LittleLee and Rose. This is our brand epoxy, part A and part B. Sorry, that's backwards. Part A and part B, you've got your resin and your hardener. It is FDA compliant, so it is safe to use on tumblers. You will find the link in the description below this tumbler tutorial. It is very easy to work with. So we are going to go ahead and get it put on this cup. Again, and this turner is designed by me. It is a LittleLee and Rose turner. And the spill mat is here to catch any drips of the epoxy that may fall off the tumbler in the process. But what we're doing right now is we're going to put a nice thin coat of epoxy on it and let it harden up for probably 24 hours and give it a good solid curing. And then we're going to start the next section. So let's go ahead and get this applied. It's a nice, smooth, easy swoop. You can use a silicone brush to apply as well. I don't happen to have any clean, so I'm going to go ahead and use my finger. We are in the middle of organizing the new warehouse, and swags are being prepped. Swag bags are being prepped, so it's a little bit crazy over here. If you hear a lot of noise in the background, that's what you're hearing. We're having a lot of fun over here at LittleLee and Rose. We have fun with our members. It is a great time. All the lives lately have been hilarious. It's been fun chit-chatting with you guys on the Facebook feeds. If you don't know, we have a Facebook group. We're very active there. We do a lot of teaching, educational, about business education, regular tutorials and teaching. We interact almost daily on lives where you can ask us questions, and we just have a lot of fun over there. It's also a great place to get inspiration and ask all the questions you could possibly think of if you are a new tumbler maker. We are open. We know that there's a lot of people learning this business and learning how to have fun with this craft. So feel free to jump in and ask any questions. Do not be afraid to ask a question, because if you have the question, probably a whole bunch of other people have the same question. and they're just too nervous to ask it. So ask the question. All right, so here you can see I made about 14 grams of epoxy, which is, it looks like a little bit too much for this 12 ounce modern, but we're gonna go ahead and let it sit and use every little bit of it and get a nice layer on it. And then we're gonna let it cure for about 24 hours. We wanna make sure that even though it's epoxy and it shouldn't lift up when we put our decals down, we want to make sure. So we're going to let it cure for a full 24 hours before we go ahead and apply our stencil decals. All right, guys, so we're going to let this sit and we'll see you soon.
All right, guys, now what we're going to do is we are going to tape this cup off and we're going to put our really little peekaboos onto the cup. I chose this little design. I just went on Etsy and put in like yoga bundle and I got a ton of them. It came with like 40 designs for like $5. And then I just kind of cut them apart and got these pieces. So we're gonna place these on here and then I'm also gonna use electrical tape. So let's start with cutting these into what I want them to be. I wanna put them around 1, 2, 3 around the cup. I apologize, that's my husband with our big truck. So this is gonna be, we're gonna set the line of right here. Now we are gonna go all the way around this cup with the electrical tape. And try to keep that line nice and straight as we go around so we meet up at the end. And as I always do, leave a little tag down there. All right, so now we're gonna take, hold on, that doesn't look straight. Being really picky. And this is the nice part about electrical tape is it's workable. If you're trying to use painter's tape, it's not as forgiving. Just kind of looking around. Yeah, it looks pretty even all the way around and not sloped. I use a silicone stir stick to kind of hold the cup in place. Now we're gonna take these and dot them around evenly around the cup. Okay, we'll go ahead and put our first one. And again, this is gonna be what the peekaboo that comes out. It's gonna be right, I'm putting it just a titch. Well, let's go right on that black line. Okay, and our next one will go right here. Placing it right on the line. Facing up. You can do any design. This is just what I've selected for this cup. And so I'm making it 3 points. So the third one will go right here. No piece of glitter stuck on there. It's kind of permanent. Looks like it's permanent. There we go. This is just the design I went with. You can, of course, do any design you want. Personal preference. All right, so we got those 3. Now in between those, we're gonna start placing these. So if there is one layer of epoxy that's cured 72 hours underneath. The reason I let it cure 72 hours in between and putting these decals on it is so that when I pull these decals up, it doesn't pull any of the epoxy away. If your epoxy is only cured for like 24 hours, it might still be soft and it will lift up when you pull the decal away or the tape, and we really want to avoid that because that would be real sad to get this far in the stage of the cup and have to strip the cup. So here we go. It's always better to go slow is quick. And place that down. And last one. All right, there we go. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically cover the bottom and we're gonna spray paint it green, and then we're gonna add the glitter. All right, so now we're gonna use painter's tape. This is just to really kind of just coat. It doesn't need to be fancy or look good. It's just about protecting this bottom layer from the spray paint. Whoop. All right, so we're gonna take this outside and spray paint this with the dark green, and then we're gonna come on in and I will show you the glitter application. Okay, so now you see we've got the spray paint on the cup, and what we're gonna use is Krylon Easy Tack. And we are going to spray that here on this, and we're gonna then add we're using Artie. He's our glitter color Artie, and we're gonna put them all over the tap. So here we go. All right, so we've got, we added this tacky layer. You can see it's a little bit sticky. And now we're gonna drop down Arthur on top of this. I'm sorry, I keep saying Arthur. This is Artie. Arthur is his bigger brother. He's a merman mix. Arthur has a little bit of opalescence. This is our straight teal green. I've backed it with that hunter green, just so it helps fill in the gaps. Makes it really nice and easy to coat the cup and get good coverage. Go around a couple times. All right, then always tap. Any excess will fall off. Okay, I'm gonna clean up and we'll be back to the next step. All right, so we've got our piece of parchment paper, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay this glitter down flat. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna roll it in the parchment paper and apply pressure. And that's gonna help lay that glitter down flat and get it extra, extra shiny, and really press into all the little gaps and parts of that the decals and the details of the decal. And we're just pressing it in all the way around, kind of like how you'd put on, if you're putting on a decal, you would want to make sure it's like pressed down really nice and firm. We're doing the same thing with the glitter. It's kind of like the burnishing method, but we're just doing it with the paper so we don't get it all over our hands. Whoop, and it pulled a little piece away. So we're just gonna spray. Oh, but I can tell that's orange, so that's part of the decal. We're not gonna worry about it. So now we can go into the little spots and just really press. Get this glitter. It's the flatter you get it, the shinier it is. Take our little handle out. That little handle is what I use for spray painting on stuff. It's basically just a PVC pipe with a little pool noodle on the end. Very handy, very inexpensive to make. Okay. You can also do this. This is called burnishing. This will help smooth down your glitter and knock off any excess that you don't need on there. Just trying to show you guys the different methods and techniques. This is all using the Krylon Easy Tack. It's repositionable, so it keeps its adhesion for about 3 hours. It's very easy to work with. You can use really any repositional tack. This is just the one I'm using for this tutorial today. All right, that looks beautiful. So what we're gonna do is let's untape it. You don't wanna leave the tape on there too long because it starts really gripping onto that epoxy and it could potentially pull it. So we wanna get this tape off. And with this, we gotta be very, very careful because it's gonna pull up that vinyl as well as we come to it. I can see it right there. So I can tell right here is where that orange vinyl was. So I'm going to take my tweezers so I don't lose that spot and just pull it back a little bit so we can see it. And there's the next one. I can see it because I can see it lifting just a tiny bit as we go by. It's not ready to be pulled up yet. We've got to let it sit for a couple hours before we want to pull that up. But we're pulling the edge up just so we don't lose its place. And the last one I can tell is right here. There we go. All right, so we're gonna let this sit for a couple hours and let this really set in. Let the repositionable tack kind of dry on there, so make sure that our glitter is really well attached, and then we will go ahead and remove the decals and it'll show off that beautiful wood grain. All right, we're gonna pick up and pull off this decal very, very slowly. It's gonna come off very, very slowly and pulling all the little details. You wanna pull it slowly so that you don't lose any of that glitter detail and you don't rip up the wood grain base. And just not rushing anything. Nice and slow. Easy peasy. Of course, you don't have to select such a delicate design. I just did because I really wanted to go for it. I wanted to try to do it. You can see I practiced one and it was ready to lift. I wanted to check, but you can see it's just so gorgeous. And it was easy to find that one because I had pre-lifted that first little edge. And now we've got our second one here. Our third one. Nice and steady. I would normally be wearing my wedding ring, but I'm afraid to put this down. You know when you have like that good mojo going and you don't want to lose it? I feel like I've got that good mojo going. Ta-da! All right, now the tricky part. We've got to go right in between and try to find our other one. So I'm holding it in the light, and I should have put a dot, but I thought I would be able to see it. But of course, I can't really see it. So I'm gonna work on this one kind of quiet and careful. What I'm doing is just kind of poking at it. When you feel the softness of the vinyl, you'll know the feeling of it. It'll just feel different than the regular cup. And if you gouge it, you can always go in and just push like that, and the glitter goes right back. So I know it happens to be kind of in the middle. That's why I'm looking around in this area. There's a dot. So now we found one dot. So let's see, did I put a dot above it? Yes, I can feel the way it slides that there is another vinyl above it. These fine pointed tweezers are amazing for this. And then I know below that, I know I didn't go higher, so we're going to go in below. Grab that one. And then just below that, we will find the rest of that orange vinyl. I'm just holding very steady because I don't want to scrape the surface. Just want to very carefully pull up and pull away that orange vinyl. So pretty. All right, I'm going to finish this out and we'll be right back.
All right, guys, so now we have our next layer of epoxy. This may very well be our final layer of epoxy. So let's get it added on. We're gonna get this turning. We've got the epoxy pre-mixed. This should be our last layer of epoxy. We're using the LittleLee and Rose epoxy. It tends to go on a bit thicker than other epoxies. And so it should cover this glitter really well. I may have to do just a little tiny sanding and add a little like hang method layer at the very end, but we shall see. I've been really careful to try to keep any excess glitter off this bottom, but you know those stray little dang glitters, they get away from you. So we're going to start by epoxying up the top first. And then we will work our way down to the bottom. Okay, so now I've got enough glitter on this top part. Now we're just going to kind of work it around. Make sure we have decent coverage here. Anything extra we can bring back up here and add coverage. All right, so now I'm going to do a little finger check. I got some on my fingers, so I'm going to clean that off with a baby wipe. All right, in theory, I actually probably should have started at the bottom so that the glitter doesn't travel. But I wiped off my fingers so we have no extra little bits of glitter. There are a few little pieces of green that are down here that just got stuck to the cup when I was spray painting it, but I always tell my clients there may be a stray piece. It's coming from the giant warehouse full of glitter. All right. So now we're just getting this all coated. If there was any fish eyes, there was a couple little fish eyes on here that it repelled, but we're just gonna put a nice thick layer on and it will just cover up those fish eyes. You don't need to do anything extra. You don't need to wash it or sand it or anything. Our LittleLee and Rose epoxy will just fill those right in. Sometimes it's mainly what I found, if that happens on cups with our brand of epoxy, it's because the epoxy was added too soon after the last round of product was added. So like there's some moisture. There is a little piece of glitter. We're gonna get that out of there. So there was like a little piece of moisture and it repelled because of that. There's a little tiny. So I'm just really watching these little bits of glitter, pulling them out as I see them. I have a little extra epoxy. So I'm gonna go ahead and add it to this top portion. You can see there's virtually no bubbles. And I haven't even touched it with my torch yet. There's like one or two maybe. But what I will do actually is let this sit for about 20 minutes and I will come back and check and see if those bubbles are still here. Most likely they will already be gone. And this cup will just be rotating. So we'll be back to it tomorrow. It's later in the evening, so we'll be back to it tomorrow and we'll see where we're at. All right, see you guys soon.
All right, guys, this needed just one more layer. There's a little bit of roughness up on the top and need a little extra coverage on the bottom. So we're gonna just do a really quick last little layer. It's gonna be a kind of a thin coat, just enough to cover those little bits up. All right, here we go. And with this coat, we are all done. I hope you guys learned a few tips and tricks, and this is a really fun cup, and we hope to see you on the next tutorial. Bye, guys.